I'm Susan Miller, a 42-year-old homemaker. 6 years ago, I married my husband, David. At the time of our marriage, David had a son, Mike, from his previous marriage. Mike was 16 then, right in the middle of his rebellious phase. Being a stepmother at such a sensitive time, Mike didn't take well to me at all. Whenever he saw me, he would attack with harsh words. David, who should have been witnessing all this, was completely indifferent. He never stood up for me. Now, Mike is 22. Suddenly, he brought home his girlfriend, Emily, announcing they were getting married. Mike and Emily were high school classmates. Since he had never brought a girl home before, David was a bit bewildered but still overjoyed. And what's more, Emily was 2 months pregnant, a double celebration. David was more excited than Mike, insisting on having the wedding before the pregnancy became too noticeable. As for the wedding, Mike and Emily were handling the arrangements, even planning to pay for it themselves, which was quite responsible of them. Mike and Emily seemed so happy preparing for their wedding. During the fitting for the wedding attire, David and I were also there. Mike was trying on tuxedos, Emily was looking at wedding and cocktail dresses. And David was getting fitted for a morning suit. As Mike's mother, I didn't want to be an embarrassment, so I got fitted for an elegant black dress. Then, David and Mike burst into laughter. "What's with all the fuss you're making? Why are you even coming to the wedding? We have no obligation to invite a fake mother." David, Mike, and Emily were pointing and laughing at me. "Wait, what?" I was shocked by Emily's words and their attitude of mocking me together. When Emily first came to our house, she had seemed so quiet and modest. Was she just pretending? Now, she was refusing to acknowledge me as a mother, just like Mike. 2 months after the wedding introduction, the big day arrived. Mike and Emily, having finished their preparations, peeked into the reception hall, expecting it to be bustling. But, to their surprise, the hall was empty. "What's going on? What's this?" Mike and Emily were stunned. "Didn't you say strangers don't need to come to the wedding?" I appeared, deliberately dressed in casual home clothes. "I've sent a cancellation notice to all the guests. Relatives, friends, they'll all have a good laugh at this." "What have you done?" "Well, aren't all relatives and friends essentially strangers?" "Relatives aren't strangers." "When was the last time you even met with relatives? Only acknowledging them when it suits you must be inconvenient for them too." I had never met the relatives of the Miller family myself. It seemed like they didn't have much of a relationship with relatives in general. Maybe they think it's enough to meet relatives only at weddings and funerals. "You're the one not welcomed by the relatives. Everyone in the family doesn't acknowledge your marriage to Dad. Maybe you should realize they dislike you." I don't mind being disliked by relatives, Mike or Emily. I mean, it's not like they're supposed to like me. After all, I married David just 6 months after his first wife passed away, becoming the stepmother. The very term stepmother isn't well received, and people often say I'm after the wealth. But David doesn't have any fortune. There were no real benefits to marrying him, but I was prepared to become Mike's mother. "And what's with that outfit? Are you mocking us? My and Emily's wedding?" "Well, I wasn't invited, so casual clothes are fine. Just thought I'd take a stroll and drop by." "Are you jealous? Telling me not to come to my own wedding? Thinking you've done a great job as a mom for just 6 years?" Emily was snickering on the side. They must share the same sentiments. That's probably why they're getting married. "Our marriage has nothing to do with you. And don't think you'll be holding our baby." Seriously, getting pregnant after just 3 months of dating? That's thoughtless and irresponsible. Honestly, you're just getting married because of the baby, right? Raising a child isn't as easy as you think. If you say I can't hold my grandchild, then I won't help with childcare at all. We don't need your help. Emily's mom said she'd help out. Blood-related mothers are kinder, you know. Besides, you've never even had a child, right? Talking about childcare when you've got no experience is kind of embarrassing. True, I've never had a child. But I did help raise my much younger niece, born to my unmarried sister. She's 15 now. I haven't seen her much since marrying David, but we keep in touch via email. I once thought about relating her growth to Mike's, but stepchildren are not that simple. Our new house is right near Emily's parents, so we won't have to see you anymore. But when I come to my parents' house, make yourself scarce. You're not family, after all. David, too, will probably dote on his first grandchild. I can easily imagine him becoming a doting grandfather, spoiling the child with gifts. But even then, it'll be nice when the grandchild visits or leaves. The one who'll struggle the most is Emily. She might act tough now, saying she doesn't need help, but I bet she'll come crying to me eventually. I can't say for sure she won't desperately ask for my help. Childcare is that demanding. Emily's still young, and while her friends are out having fun, she'll be consumed by childcare 24/7. She'll definitely crack. Emily's mom says she'll help, but Emily has 2 younger brothers. It's unlikely she'll be able to offer much support. So, let me ask, Mike. You're unemployed right now, aren't you? How do you plan to support a family of 3? I can get a job anywhere if I want to. I'm young and have all the potential. That's easy to say. You've been hopping from one part-time job to another since high school, never staying longer than 3 months at any place. With such an indecisive and careless nature, how will you provide? We're gonna become YouTubers. Making our parenting journey a content, it's bound to go viral. We'll even stream the birth live, capturing the attention of parents everywhere. Times have changed, Auntie. You're so outdated. YouTubers? That's already passé. Everything's been done, and there's nothing new left. You really think you can make a living off of YouTube? I was astounded by their naive and simplistic idea. Countless people give up on YouTube within a year. Surpassing the current popular YouTubers is almost impossible now. Don't act like you know everything. Our friends say our content will be useful when they get married and have kids. You wouldn't understand because you don't have friends. Anyway, I don't need lectures from an aunt who used to work in nightlife before marrying my dad. You just tricked him into marrying you. Whoa, Auntie worked in nightlife? I had no idea. But it makes sense. You've always had a bit of a tacky vibe. Too old for a club hostess, so maybe something more risque? Mike and Emily laughed crudely. I did work in nightlife. At a club. I was, in a sense, a hired manager there. But I worked with pride. I don't want to hear about jobs from someone like you. Just used men and tricked my dad to settle as a housewife. You just didn't want to work anymore, right? You're 42 now, aren't you? You could still have kids. Why don't you focus on that? I'm out of the picture, so no need to hold back. I've never thought about having my own kids. There was a time I wanted a child with David. But he refused, and seeing Mike scared me. It's different from looking after my niece. There's a lot of responsibility, and I've heard about the struggles of older mothers. If I had a child now, I'd be over 60 when they're an adult. I hesitated and gave up on the idea. Auntie, having kids might be tough for you, right? Remember how terrible your lunches were in high school, Mike? The whole class laughed. Kindergarten-style character lunchbox for a high schooler? Yeah, I was so embarrassed. I always threw them away, but you kept making them. I knew he threw away the lunches. Maybe I was stubborn to keep making them. Character lunch takes time and effort, and I had to wake up early. It might have seemed childish to a high schooler, but it was my way of trying. And dinner, always trying too hard. Cooking course-like meals nobody asked for. I wanted hearty meals like steak or fried chicken, not pasta or paella. You thought it was fancy, but it wasn't tasty, and never enough. I ended up eating instant noodles at night. Weren't you making homemade cookies too? Trying too hard to be a mom, it's kinda sad. Of course, I tried hard. Suddenly becoming a mother to a 16-year-old in an unwelcoming environment. I knew I wouldn't be liked or accepted from the start. But Mike, you never ate my cooking, did you? Always flipping the plate, saying how can anyone eat this, and ordering delivery. Of course, restaurant food is better. They say nothing beats mom's cooking, but for me, delivery is a million times better. David told me Mike was picky. He wanted me to excel in cooking. Before I married David, I lived at home and didn't cook much. Working nights meant I hardly had dinner with my dad, mom, sister, and niece. So, I had to study cooking desperately. I'd practice the dinner menu by making it for lunch first. Then, dinner was the real deal. I ended up eating the same menu twice a day. Mike was growing, so I couldn't cut corners. When I was home, my sister worked, so my mom and I took care of my niece. We protected her as a family, so she wouldn't feel lonely without a dad. I decided to marry David and become Mike's stepmom because I thought he still needed a mother figure. Mike's mom had health issues since he started middle school, going in and out of the hospital. David's mom took over his care. Mike's mom passed away when Mike was in 9th grade, followed soon by his grandmother. David and Mike must have been devastated. Especially Mike, with exams and all. He wasn't overly attached to his mom but didn't rebel either. She spent most of middle school in the hospital, so there wasn't much to rebel against. He probably sensed her impending death. But still, losing a mom so early is hard to process. Then David brought me home only half a year after her death, saying, "This is your new mom." How could he not be confused? It was impossible to accept. It was natural for Mike to dislike me. Whenever he saw me, he'd say, "Go away. I hate even breathing the same air as you." If I even appeared in his line of sight, he'd yell, "You're annoying. Get out of my sight. You make my eyes rot." I often went out until things cooled down. It was the same day after day. He barely graduated high school, hanging out and getting called in by teachers. Mike barely graduated high school but didn't get a job. Instead, he became what's essentially a jobless freeloader. His friends were either in college or working full-time, so he didn't have anyone to hang out with in his free time. He mostly spent his time at the arcade. The only time he talked to me was to ask for money. I had some savings from my years working nightlife while living at home. David, although it's rude to say, had insurance money from his late wife, so the Miller family didn't struggle financially. I had to give Mike money to avoid his verbal abuse and punching walls. "I don't need you, Mike, just as you don't need me. After everything that's happened, this is only natural payback. You can't just dismiss it as teenage rebellion. From now on, I'll do as I please. Even if you get divorced, don't think you can return home. That house is mine now. That house is my dad's and mine. You're just an outsider, so don't get comfortable. Didn't I mention? The house is now in my name." "What? That can't be. The mortgage should have been paid off with my mom's insurance." "You're completely unaware. David used that insurance money for FX trading or something and failed miserably. Funny, right? Mike, didn't you ask David to pay for your wedding but got refused?" "Well, yeah, but..." "David doesn't have any spare money left. He couldn't pay the mortgage, so he came to me in tears. I paid off the remaining amount, which is why the house is in my name. Blame David for blowing your mom's hard-earned money in an instant. Don't get cocky just because you're the owner now. Flaunting money earned by pandering to men. Today's wedding is canceled, so make sure to pay up. It's about $60,000, right? You good with that?" $60,000? "Well, yeah, I can handle $60,000. "Wow, a jobless guy with money, huh?" "Yeah, I can get it if I really want to." I know he can't, but let's see how this plays out. Emily looked worriedly and tugged at Mike's sleeve. "Are you sure that's okay? Your dad already said no, and my family can't pay because of my brother's tuition fees, right?" "Don't worry, I'll handle the $60,000. "How are you gonna do that?" "I'll borrow from a consumer finance company." "What? You're going into debt?" These days, there are options to pay for wedding costs in installments. Normally, for a regular wedding, you could collect gifts and use that money to pay. But this time, it's treated as a cancellation, so there are expenses for ingredients, rented outfits, and more. The gifts will go to waste, and cancellation is the last thing any wedding venue staff wants. But borrowing money from a consumer finance company, is that really okay? $600 is one thing, but $60,000? You didn't plan a wedding within your means, hence the $60,000, right? You even invited distant relatives and classmates you barely talked to. Mike, you always want to show off. If you had invited fewer people, the gifts might have covered it. Mind your own business. I'll earn it through YouTube. $60,000 is nothing. Just watch. Suit yourself. I didn't say everything I wanted, but I'm not cruel enough to torment them further. I let the two, still in their tuxedo and wedding dress, go. Probably, both Mike and Emily would have to borrow the maximum from consumer finance to gather $60,000. Paying it back will be tough, especially with a child on the way and more expenses. It's up to Mike how far he'll push himself. Did he inherit his lack of resolve from David? When I got home, David, having heard from Mike, was waiting. Now it seems I'm up for a battle with David. You went to the wedding venue in pajamas like clothes? You told everyone that today's wedding was cancelled and didn't have to go? Was your aim to crush Mike? Not just Mike, maybe you too, David. Scary. You are cunning. Just like a woman from nightlife. This is a good chance to tell you, David. You married me just to have someone take care of you, right? When I was working as a manager at a club, David was a regular. Looking back, I wonder how he managed to come drinking every night while his wife was hospitalized. Maybe it was hard for him, and he needed a break. Still, it looked bad. I thought something happened when David, a regular, stopped showing up. But I never imagined his wife had passed away. Soon after he started coming again, David personally invited me out. The club I worked at wasn't high-end. It was more accessible. Which is probably why they let someone like me manage it. David wasn't a big earner. Yet, he started coming daily to woo me. He must have been lonely after his wife's death, needing any woman to fill the void. He probably just noticed I was of a certain age and still single. I too felt the limits of nightlife. It's not a world to stay in long, and I didn't dream of owning my place then. Most of my friends were married with families. I thought, why not experience being a full-time homemaker? I was tired of working. So, when a man proposed, and it happened to be David, I accepted. Hearing he had a son in high school gave me pause. But David proposed like he was royalty. You may have concerns about my son, but I promise to protect you for the rest of my life. David had said, persuading me to marry him. So, David, you just got tired of everything, right? After your wife passed away, then your mother, you realized you couldn't do anything by yourself. Mike was still in high school and needed a mother. There I was, the leftover woman, and you married me to fill the gap of a wife and mother. What are you talking about? Such nonsense. Nonsense. My precious 6 years. You're not even that rich, and your son did nothing but rebel against me. Did you ever stand up for me even once when Mike was awful to me? Instead, you joined him in mocking and complaining about me. No, I never meant. Your proposal was a complete lie. Protect you with all my might, you said, but you just ignored everything. You turned a blind eye and ran away. If that's what you think, then maybe it's true. So, you're defiant now. I've been holding back because of Mike, but not anymore. Besides, this house is mine now, so David, you better understand your place. I'm in charge here. After enduring for 6 years, Mike left home rather quickly. David, with over a decade until retirement, will continue to be a corporate slave, a worker bee. The least he can do is contribute financially to the house. You've suddenly become so prickly. Did being called a stranger by Mike and Emily really bother you that much? It's the truth, after all. Getting upset over it is silly. Sure, Mike may have been rebellious and hurt you, but that happens in every family. Even real mothers face rebellion from their children. It's a normal phenomenon. Complaining about it now is childish. Bringing up the past won't change anything. I'm done with Mike. He's left home, and even if he has kids, they're none of my business. They're strangers to me. I probably won't even find them cute. This house is mine now. If you dare oppose me in the future, I'll sell this house, divorce you, and leave. Be prepared for that. I'm just returning what's been done to me in a bigger way. It's payback for how you've used and ridiculed me. Any objections? Yes, checkmate. I won't stay silent forever. This is my retaliation against Mike, Emily, and David for underestimating me. It's time to unleash my 6 years of pent-up frustration. No objections. But you'll take care of me in my old age, right? Seriously? That's your concern? You're just selfish. It's clear now what kind of person you are. I never expected much from David in the first place. But he could have said more. A late-life divorce might be on the table, you know. At that, David visibly panicked. He had no idea what minefield he had stepped into. Both father and son, utterly clueless. Mike and Emily's wedding of the century ended up a fantasy. They borrowed money from consumer finance, saddling themselves with debt. Raising a child costs more than one can imagine. They won't be able to spend freely as they used to. A child often falls ill, leading to frequent hospital visits and medication expenses. Have they even considered these future costs? Mike finally started a part-time job, but I doubt how long he'll last. He's probably not used to being scolded, and a little harsh word might make him quit. Seems so soft. But with monthly rent, Emily's maternity expenses, baby supplies, plus debt repayment, they'll have a lot on their plate. I'll just sit back and watch to see if they can make it. I wonder if they're still dreaming of becoming YouTubers. If so, they'll soon face reality. They'll probably end up crying to David or Emily's family for help. David is broke. Emily's family also has 2 brothers, one attending a private high school and the other a private university student. That must be a significant monthly expense. They can't afford to live like this. There's no money for the baby's milk. They're being chased by debt collectors. Even if they come crying to Emily's parents, saying all this, I wonder if they realistically have any money to help. They might end up coming to me for help. Though, given Mike and Emily's pride, they might not allow themselves to do that, but it would be their last resort. If they come to me for help, I won't give them a single cent. After all, if Mike and Emily work seriously, they should be able to cover the amount. Their failure is due to trying to take shortcuts instead of working hard. I wish they would live more earnestly. As for my retaliation against David, I'm thinking in terms of money. David came up with this idea. Susan, please. I'll give you a certain amount of money each month, like a loan payment. Please change the house's name back to mine. A grandchild is on the way, and there might be more in the future. The only thing I can leave for Mike and the grandchildren is this house. It's about maintaining my dignity as a parent. So please. All right. How about $2,000 a month for the loan repayment? That leaves you with a $200 allowance each month. $200? That's too much. What about my lunch expenses? Skipping lunch would decrease my work efficiency. I buy at least 1 drink a day. I can't afford it. Then make a sandwich in the morning and take it with you. Fill a thermos with drinks. Use your head more. Susan, you're going to prepare that for me? What? Of course not. Why do you keep treating me like a maid? I'm not taking care of Mike or you anymore. I've finally gained my freedom. It's not decided yet, but I'm thinking of getting a job myself. Ideally, I'd like to start my own business, but that requires a competent business partner. Still, it's a dream I want to fulfill someday. I don't want to end my life just being a wife and a mother.